Ethiopian Bible reveals what Jesus taught his disciples after the resurrection, as told through the eyes of Carl Gustav Jung. I am going to tell you something I discovered in the final years of my life, something I never dared to publish in full, because I knew it would shatter the foundations of everything institutional Christianity has built over 2 millennia. Let me begin with a confession. I, Carl Gustav Jung, the man who spent his life plumbing the depths of the human psyche, who mapped the architecture of the collective unconscious, who walked with alchemists, mystics, and dreamers, made a discovery in 1952 that redefined everything I thought I understood about Christ. And it did not happen in my study in Kusnacht, nor in the hallowed libraries of Europe. It happened in the remote highlands of Ethiopia. I was 77 years old. My body was failing. For years earlier, a heart attack had reminded me of my mortality. I believed my great work was behind me, that nothing remained to be uncovered. Then came a letter. It arrived from a former patient of mine, a Swiss diplomat stationed in Addis Ababa. He wrote in trembling script, "Doctor, I have found manuscripts here that suggest everything you've written about Christ as the archetype of the self may have a historical basis, one the Church deliberately concealed. These texts claim to record what Jesus actually taught during the 40 days after his resurrection. And believe me, these teachings are not about sin and salvation as Rome defines them. They are psychological, profound, transformative. They speak of shadow, of wholeness, of the death and rebirth of the soul." This letter haunted me. You see, I had long argued that Christ symbolized the self, the totality of the psyche, the divine image within. I saw the resurrection not as a mere physical miracle, but as a mythic representation of individuation, the psychological process by which a fragmented ego integrates its darkness and emerges whole. But I always wondered, what if Jesus himself taught this? What if his post-resurrection instructions were not about dogma, but about inner transformation? What if the Church, in its hunger for control, buried the most radical truth of all, that salvation is not granted from outside, but forged within? So, against the pleas of my wife and children, I went. The journey was grueling: Zurich to Rome, Rome to Cairo, Cairo to Addis Ababa. Then 5 hours on dirt roads into the Ethiopian highlands, to the ancient monastery of Debre Libanos. There, under the watchful eyes of Abba Paulos, the monastery's elder, I was shown texts bound in linen, written in Guizi, the sacred language of Ethiopia. One of them bore the title, Metaf Baran, the Book of Light. It contained the teachings Christ gave his disciples over 40 days, not the fleeting appearances of the canonical Gospels, but a full curriculum of spiritual psychology. As Abba Paulos translated, I trembled, because Christ wasn't just a symbol of the self. He was its first teacher. Day 1, the descent into the shadow. On the first day after his resurrection, Jesus spoke of his time in the tomb, not as sleep, but as a descent into the depths. "I did not merely die," he said. "I entered the abyss within myself. I faced the voice that whispers, 'You are abandoned. You are meaningless.' I embraced the terror, the doubt, the desolation. And in embracing it, I transformed it." This was no metaphor. This was the nigredo, the alchemical blackening, the necessary confrontation with the shadow. He told his disciples, "Unless you descend into your own darkness, you cannot rise. Do not flee your pain. Do not spiritualize it away. Enter it. For only there, where you feel most lost, will you meet the truth of who you are." I looked up, stunned. This was precisely what I had spent my life teaching: integration, not repression. Days 2 to 7, the union of opposites. Then Christ spoke of what he called the war within: light versus dark, spirit versus flesh, love versus fear. You believe holiness means erasing your anger, your lust, your doubt. But that is violence against the soul. True wholeness does not destroy one side to elevate the other. It unites them. He used a word in Aramaic, nefesh shlema, the complete soul. Abba Paulos turned to me and said, "This is yourself, Doctor." Yes. And Christ went further. "Peter, you denied me. But in that denial, you met your weakness. Now, through forgiveness and awareness, that very weakness becomes your strength. Your shadow is not your enemy, it is your teacher." He was describing the coincidentia oppositorum, the alchemical marriage of opposites. The same process I call the transcendent function, where inner conflict gives birth to a higher consciousness. Days 8 to 14, the inner feminine and masculine. Then came the most astonishing revelation. Christ taught that every man carries a woman within, and every woman carries a man. God created humanity in his image, male and female. To deny one side is to deny the divine image itself. He praised Mary Magdalene, saying, "She has integrated the masculine logos, clarity, courage, truth-speaking, more fully than many of my male disciples, who still fear vulnerability as weakness." When Peter objected, Christ rebuked him. Your offense reveals your incompleteness. A whole soul sees no threat in another's wholeness. This was not gender politics. This was archetypal psychology, the anima and animus, the inner contrasexual figures I had identified decades earlier. And here it was in a first-century text spoken by Christ himself. Days 15 to 28, the archetypes and the collective unconscious. Christ then spoke of eternal images, dwelling in every soul, patterns older than personal memory. Before you were born, the hero, the wise one, the mother, the shadow already existed within you. Your life is a melody played upon these ancient notes. He named them. The father, law, structure, judgment. The mother, nurturing, creativity, unconditional love. The adversary, not Satan as external demon, but the voice within that resists change. And himself. I am the anthropos, the realized self. But I am not the only one who may embody this. Each of you is called to become the Christ of your own life. This shattered dogma. Institutional Christianity teaches Christ did it all. Just believe. But the Ethiopian texts say, Christ showed the way. Now walk it. Salvation is not passive. It is active individuation. Days 29 to 35, the prophecy of institutional corruption. Then Christ grew solemn. They will build temples in my name, but forget the temple within. They will create priests who claim to stand between you and God, but I tell you, you need no mediator. The kingdom is within you. He warned Peter directly, Upon you I build my assembly, but beware. When emperors embrace my name for power, not love, my teachings will be twisted. Texts will be burned. Truths will be called heresy. And the path of inner transformation will be hidden, preserved only by the faithful few in the margins. This prophecy came true at Nicaea, when Constantine demanded a unified faith to bind an empire. Texts that empowered the individual were purged. The Gospel of Thomas, the Book of Enoch, the Ascension of Isaiah, all declared apocryphal. But not in Ethiopia. Isolated by deserts and mountains, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church preserved 81 books, including the full Book of Enoch and teachings of the post-resurrection Christ. While Rome standardized belief, Ethiopia safeguarded mystery. Days 36 to 40, the Ascension as inner transformation. Finally, Christ prepared them for his departure, not as a physical departure into sky, but as a shift in consciousness. I do not leave you. I enter the dimension of spirit, where I can dwell within each of you. The kingdom is not up there. It is here, in the integrated soul. He gave them 3 promises. My spirit, the Paraclete, will dwell within you. Not a distant deity, but the living self. You will do the works I have done, and greater. Because individuation is ongoing. What is possible for me is possible for you. And 3 commands. Work with your dreams. Dialogue with your inner figures. Do not believe, experience. Why was this hidden? Because these teachings make the institutional church unnecessary. If every person can access the divine directly through inner work, if salvation is a psychological process, not a transaction mediated by priests, then power collapses. Rome could not allow a Christianity where the laity became mystics, not subjects. So it canonized a theology of atonement, not a psychology of transformation. But the truth survived in Ethiopia, in the Gnostics, in the Desert Fathers, in the alchemists who coded Jungian ideas and symbols of sulfur and mercury. A message for our time. Today, as institutional religion crumbles, we stand at a threshold. We can descend into nihilism, or we can rediscover the inner path Christ actually taught. The Ethiopian Bible is not fantasy. The Book of Enoch was found among the Dead Sea Scrolls. Early church fathers, like Origen and Clement, quoted it as scripture. Ethiopia never fell under Rome's doctrinal control. This is not alternative history. It is recovered history. And its message is urgent. You are not saved by belief. You are saved by becoming whole. 10 practices from the post-resurrection teachings. Shadow work. Daily ask, what am I denying in myself? Dream journaling. Dreams are divine messages from your unconscious. Inner dialogue. Men, speak to your anima. Women, listen to your animus. Observe your masks. Notice when you perform for the world. Create space between you and the role. Seek synchronicity. Meaningful coincidences are guidance from the self. Practice descent prayer. Sit in silence. Descend into your inner darkness. Do not flee. Reject spiritual bypassing. Do not use love and light to avoid your pain. Embrace paradox. Hold tension between opposites, faith and doubt, strength and vulnerability. Build soul communities, not churches of dogma, but circles of seekers committed to inner work. Trust direct experience. Do not believe me, Christ said. Test these words in your own soul. Final words. I spent my life seeking the self. And in Ethiopia, I found evidence that Christ was its first cartographer. He did not come to found a religion. He came to awaken a psychology. The resurrection was not an event in history alone. It is a process available to every human being here and now. Die to your ego. Integrate your shadow. Unite your opposites. And rise, not as a saint, but as a whole person. This is the secret Rome feared. This is the truth Ethiopia kept. And now, as the old world dies, it is time to remember. For what is possible for one is possible for all.